Captain Ji-hoon Park stood in the massive council chamber and tried not to feel small. The room stretched upward for what seemed like forever. Thousands of alien beings sat in curved rows that circled around him. Some had scales, some had fur, some looked like floating clouds of light. All of them were staring at him. Ji-hoon held a small datapad in his hands. On it was humanity's formal request to join the Galactic Council as full members. Humans had been waiting for 50 years. 50 years of proving themselves. 50 years of following every rule and completing every test the Council had given them. He cleared his throat and began to speak. His voice echoed in the enormous space. Honored Council members, humanity thanks you for this opportunity. For 5 decades, we have worked alongside your civilizations. We have learned from you. We have shared what we know. We have shown that humans can be trusted partners in this great galactic community. Behind him on a huge screen, images began to play. They showed human engineers helping to rebuild cities on the Krell homeworld after a terrible war. The Krell were large reptilian beings who had almost destroyed themselves in conflict. Humans had arrived with construction equipment and medical supplies. More importantly, they had arrived with patience and compassion. The images changed. Now they showed human farmers teaching the insectoid Zara how to grow food in their harsh desert environment. The Zara looked like giant mantises, but they moved with grace. Their old farming methods had been failing. Human agricultural experts had worked with them for years, combining Earth techniques with Zara traditional knowledge. Now their people were fed. More images followed. Humans mediating peace talks between the aquatic Delphinus and the crystalline Lithans. Humans running schools where children of 20 different species learned together. Humans operating hospitals that treated anyone who needed help, regardless of their planet of origin. Dr. Min Seo Choi stood beside Ji-hoon. She was a xenobiologist who had spent 30 years studying alien cultures. She had made friends across the galaxy. She watched the council members carefully as the presentation continued. She noticed something troubling. Many of the council members were not looking at the images of human kindness and cooperation. Instead, they were whispering to each other. Their faces, whether scaled or furred or something else entirely, showed worry. Some showed fear. When the presentation ended, Ji-hoon waited. The chamber fell silent. Then Councillor Vexthor rose from the highest seat. He was the council chairman, a towering reptilian with dark green scales and eyes like golden coins. His species had been in the council for over 3,000 years. They were used to power. Captain Park, Vexthor said slowly, your presentation is impressive. Humanity has indeed been helpful to many species. Ji-hoon felt hope rise in his chest, but something in Vexthor's tone made Min Seo tense beside him. However, the chairman continued, the council has concerns, serious concerns about humanity's place in our community. The hope in Ji-hoon's chest turned cold. You form emotional attachments too easily, Vexthor explained. You make friends with species that should remain separate. You teach ideas that disrupt traditional hierarchies. You inspire others to question their place in the natural order of things. Min Seo's hands curled into fists, but she kept her face calm. Vexthor pressed a button on his seat. The screens behind Ji-hoon changed. Now they showed graphs and charts. The Krell have begun questioning their military leadership after working with humans. The Zara have started forming worker cooperatives, which goes against their hive structure. The Delphinus and Lithans now refuse to accept the trading terms the Council negotiated for them. They say humans taught them they deserve better. The chairman's voice grew harder. You are destabilizing the galaxy. Not through war or conquest, but through something more dangerous. You give others hope that things can change. You make them believe they matter as individuals, not just as parts of their species' role in the council. Ji-hoon stepped forward. With respect, counselor, is that not a good thing? Should beings not have hope? Should they not matter as individuals? You speak from emotion, Vexthor replied. This is exactly the problem. The council maintains order across 10,000 worlds. We have peace because every species knows its place and role. Humans threaten that peace. The chairman raised his hand formally. The council has reached a decision. We invoke Containment Protocol 7. Gasps echoed through the chamber. Even some council members looked shocked. Humanity will be restricted to 12 star systems. You are forbidden from trading advanced technology with any other species. You may not accept refugees or immigrants from other worlds. You may not establish new colonies or expand beyond your current boundaries. Any human caught violating these terms will be imprisoned. Any human vessel leaving restricted space will be destroyed. Ji-hoon felt like he had been punched in the stomach. You are putting us in a cage. We are protecting the galaxy, Vexthor said. From you. Minseo finally spoke, her voice shaking with controlled anger. We have broken no laws. We have started no wars. We have only helped those who asked for help. And this is our reward? This is necessary, the chairman replied. He looked around the chamber. All those in favor of Containment Protocol 7 for humanity? Lights began appearing across the vast room. Green lights for yes. Red lights for no. Ji-hoon watched as green lights filled the chamber like stars. When the count finished, the result appeared on the screens. 847 votes for containment. Only 3 votes against. The 3 who voted against were the Krell, the Zara, and the Delphinus. The species humanity had helped most, but 3 votes meant nothing against 847. Ji-hoon stood silent for a moment. Then he spoke, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber. I understand your decision, though I believe it is wrong. Humanity will comply with your containment. But I want you to remember this day. Remember that you chose fear over friendship. Remember that you chose control over cooperation. Remember what you are, so that someday you might choose to be better. He turned and walked toward the exit. Minseo walked beside him. As they reached the door, she leaned close and whispered, They are not afraid of what we are, Ji-hoon. They are afraid of what we inspire in others. Ji-hoon nodded slowly. He looked back one last time at the council chamber, at the thousands of aliens who had just voted to cage humanity. Then we will have to inspire them anyway, he said quietly, even from inside a cage. They left the chamber. Behind them, Counselor Vexthor watched them go. Deep in his heart, he felt something uncomfortable, something he had not felt in many years. He felt shame, but he pushed it away and told himself the council had made the right choice. Outside the station, human ships waited to carry the news home. The containment would begin immediately. Humanity's golden age of galactic exploration had just ended, or so the council believed. 6 months had passed since the containment began. Life in the 12 human systems had changed completely. Engineer Hyejin Kwan floated in zero gravity inside a hidden workshop carved into an asteroid. She was not supposed to be there. The asteroid was outside the containment zone, in neutral space that the Council rarely patrolled. She had risked everything to come here. Around her, pieces of a space station floated in various stages of assembly. It did not look like much yet, but Hyejin knew what it would become. A meeting place, a safe haven for those who needed help but could not get it under council rules. Her communicator buzzed. She pressed it to her ear. Hyejin, we have a visitor, said a voice. It belonged to Marcus, a human pilot who had volunteered to help with the secret project. Friendly or council? Friendly. Says his name is Ziktar. He is Krell. He wants to speak with you. Hyejin felt her heart beat faster. The Krell had voted against containment, but their government had been forced to comply with council orders. Any Krell caught helping humans would face severe punishment. "Send him in," she said. A few minutes later, a large reptilian figure pulled himself through the entrance of the workshop. Ziktar was young for a Krell, maybe 30 years old. He wore a simple jumpsuit with no government markings. His scales were bright green, a sign of youth among his people. "Engineer Quan," he said in careful English. "Thank you for seeing me." "You took a big risk coming here," Hyejin replied. She gestured to a handhold, and they both anchored themselves to it so they could talk face to face in the zero gravity. "My people owe humans a debt," Ziktar said. "When our world was burning after the war, your people came, not to conquer, not to take advantage. You came to help rebuild. My city exists because of human engineers. My sister is alive because of human doctors." He pulled out a small data chip. "I work in the Council's Information Security Division. I have access to things most Krell do not. I have been watching what the Council does, how they maintain their power." Hyejin took the chip carefully. "What is on this?" "The truth," Ziktar said. "The Council controls the galaxy by controlling resources. They decide which species gets what technology, which planets can trade with each other. They keep everyone separated and dependent on Council approval. They prevent alliances between what they call lesser species." Hyejin plugged the chip into her datapad and began scrolling through files. Her eyes widened as she read. "This is detailed shipping records, manufacturing restrictions, communications blackouts. They are keeping dozens of species in artificial poverty." "Yes," Ziktar confirmed, "and they use fear to maintain control. They tell the Aquari that the Lithans want to steal their water. They tell the Lithans that the Aquari want to shatter their crystals. They keep everyone afraid of each other so no one questions Council authority." Hyejin looked at the young Krell with new respect. "Why are you telling us this?" "Because humans are different," Ziktar said simply. "You do not see other species as threats or tools. You see them as people. When you helped rebuild my world, you did not ask for payment or political control. You just helped because it was the right thing to do. The Council fears this. They should." Over the next 3 months, Hyejin's project expanded rapidly. She called it Operation Lighthouse. The name came from an old Earth concept. Lighthouses guided ships to safety through dangerous waters. Using Ziktar's information, humans began reaching out to species the Council had marginalized. They used encrypted communications that jumped between relay stations faster than Council monitors could track. They offered help with no strings attached. Medical technology to the Ventari, whose children were dying from a plague the Council said was too expensive to cure. Agricultural techniques to the moths of Sigma 5, who were starving because Council shipping fees made importing food impossible. Water purification systems to the desert-dwelling Cricks, whose request to the Council had been denied for 40 years. And something else, something more important than technology. Humans shared knowledge about conflict resolution, about peaceful protest, about workers' rights and fair negotiations. They taught others that they did not have to accept whatever the Council decided for them. Word began to spread through underground networks. If you needed help, find the humans. If you were suffering under unfair Council policies, the humans would listen. They might not be able to solve every problem, but they would try. Lyra was a scout for the Zara hive. The insectoid species communicated partly through pheromones and partly through clicking sounds. She had been on one of the Zara worlds when humans first came to teach farming methods. She remembered how patient they had been, how they had learned to understand Zara communication instead of demanding the Zara learn human ways. When she heard about Operation Lighthouse, she brought her discovery to her hive's queen. The queen considered carefully. Then she made a decision that would have shocked the Council. The Zara had rich deposits of rare minerals on their worlds. The Council purchased these minerals at fixed low prices, then sold them to other species at huge profits. The Zara received barely enough to survive. The Queen ordered her workers to secretly divert a portion of their mining production. These minerals were smuggled to human havens and traded directly for food, medicine, and technology. No Council middlemen, no exploitation. Other species began doing the same. A barter economy grew in the shadows of Council control. Species that had never met were now trading directly, with humans serving as neutral mediators when disputes arose. The Council noticed something was wrong after about 4 months. Mineral shipments were down. Production had mysteriously fallen across dozens of worlds. Agricultural yields were up in places they should not be. Plague outbreaks were ending without Council medical intervention. They sent enforcers to investigate. The enforcers discovered one of Hyejin's haven stations. It was in an asteroid belt in the Gamma sector beyond the containment zone. When they arrived, they found representatives from 17 different species gathered there. Humans were teaching them about sustainable power generation. The Council ships moved in to arrest everyone. Hyejin was on the station when the warning came. She had maybe 5 minutes before the enforcers would board. "Everyone to the evacuation ships," she ordered calmly. "Quickly but carefully. No panic." "What about you?" asked a Ventari medic. "I will make sure everyone gets out," Hyejin said. "I will leave last." She helped the Crix family with their young ones. She steadied an elderly Delphinus as he moved toward the airlock. She counted heads 3 times to make absolutely sure everyone was aboard the small evacuation craft. The Council ships were docking as the last transport left. Hyejin stayed behind. She set the station's reactor to overload, destroying all evidence of what had been happening there. Then, and only then, she climbed into her own small ship and raced away. The station exploded behind her, but everyone had escaped. Not a single life lost. The story of what happened spread across the galaxy faster than light-speed communications. The human had stayed behind. The human had made sure every other species was safe before saving herself. The human had sacrificed her project to protect others. The Council had discovered 1 haven station. They did not know there were 17 others already operating, with more being built every week. And across the galaxy, beings who had never thought much about humans before began to pay attention. Maybe the Council was wrong about them. Maybe the humans were not the threat. Maybe the real threat was a system that valued control over compassion. 1 year had passed since humanity's containment. The galaxy looked very different now, though the Council pretended not to notice. Ambassador Sungmin Lee sat in a small conference room on a neutral trade station. The room was crowded. Representatives from 47 different species had gathered secretly. Some had traveled for weeks to be there. All of them had risked everything by coming. Sungmin had once been humanity's most respected voice in Council proceedings. Before the containment, she had spent 15 years advocating for fair treatment of all species. The Council had ignored most of her proposals, but she had never stopped trying. Now she used those same diplomatic skills for something more important. "Thank you all for coming," she said. Her words were translated into dozens of languages by small devices each representative wore. "We are here because we share something in common. We have all been told we do not matter. We have all been told to accept whatever the Council decides for us. We are here because we believe there is a better way." A Ventari medic named Shala spoke up. Her species looked like small purple bears with 6 limbs. "The Council controls medical supplies. They decide who receives vaccines and who does not. Last year, my planet's children were dying. We begged for medicine. The Council said it was not economically efficient to help us. Then humans came with the medicine anyway. They saved 8,000 children. An insectoid Zara worker clicked softly. The translation device rendered it into words. "The Council sets the prices for our minerals. We work ourselves to exhaustion for barely enough food to survive. Humans taught us we could trade directly with other species. Now we eat well. Now our children thrive. One by one, representatives shared their stories. The pattern was always the same. The council maintained control through artificial scarcity and enforced separation. Humans had shown there was another way. Elder Tharn spoke last. He was a delphinus, one of the aquatic species that looked somewhat like Earth's dolphins, but much larger and with hands. His people were among the oldest in the galaxy. Tharn himself was over 300 years old. "I have studied the ancient records," his voice was translated. "The Galactic Council was not always like this. When it was founded 5,000 years ago, the principles were different. Mutual aid, shared prosperity, protection of the weak. These were the founding values." He activated a holographic display. Ancient text appeared, glowing softly in the dimly lit room. "This is from the original Council Charter. It says that all species are equal in dignity and rights. It says that the purpose of the Council is to ensure all beings can flourish, not just the powerful. Somewhere over the millennia, we forgot these principles. We let fear and greed replace wisdom and compassion." Sungmin looked around the room. "So what do we do?" A Lethan named Crix spoke. Her species were crystalline beings who communicated through light pulses. Her people had been mined for their crystal formations for generations, treated as resources rather than people. "We remind them," Crix said. "All of them. Not just the Council, but every being in the galaxy. We show them what they have forgotten." The idea formed slowly, built through discussion and debate. They would organize a coordinated action across the galaxy, something that could not be ignored. A work stoppage. For one full day, all 47 species represented in the room would simply stop. Stop mining, stop farming, stop manufacturing, stop maintaining infrastructure, stop everything. Not a strike demanding better conditions, not a protest with signs and chanting, just silence, just stillness, just a demonstration of how much the galaxy depended on species the Council dismissed as unimportant. "The Council will respond with force," warned a representative of the moths, a gentle species that looked like large earth moths, but with intelligence and culture. "Let them try," Sungmin replied. "Humans have studied peaceful resistance for thousands of years. We have learned what works. Violence against peaceful protest often turns public opinion against the aggressor. We will teach you what we know." Over the next month, the plan spread. The group chose a name for their alliance: the Chorus. The name came from the idea that harmony requires many different voices singing together, each one important. Humans distributed information about nonviolent resistance, how to remain calm in the face of aggression, how to protect yourself without hurting others, how to maintain unity when authorities tried to divide you. These were lessons learned through Earth's long history of civil rights movements, independence struggles, and workers' rights campaigns. The day of the stoppage arrived. It had been chosen carefully, the anniversary of the Council's founding, a date celebrated across the galaxy. On 200 worlds, workers simply stopped working. Factories went silent, fields went unharvested, transportation stopped, power stations reduced to minimal operation, enough to prevent disasters, but no more. The Council's own headquarters station found itself unable to function. The beings who cleaned the halls were Ventari. The engineers who maintained life support were Krell. The cooks who prepared food were moths. The technicians who ran communications were Zara. All of them stopped. Within hours, Council operations ground to a halt. Councillor Vexthor stood in his office, staring at reports flooding in from across the galaxy. His hands trembled slightly as he read. Economic systems failing, supply chains broken, infrastructure at risk, and everywhere the same message: The chorus demands the council remember its founding principles. He called an emergency military meeting. Deploy enforcers to key worlds. Arrest the leaders of this movement. Use whatever force is necessary to restore order. The orders went out. Military ships moved toward planets where the stoppage was most organized. But then something unexpected happened. 3 different species military commanders refused their orders. A Krell admiral, a Ventari general, a Zara hive commander. They all said the same thing. They would not use force against peaceful beings. They had learned from humans that there was a difference between strength and cruelty. More officers followed their example. Not all of them, but enough that the council's military response became uncertain and scattered. Sungmin had anticipated this moment. She had been working with human technicians to prepare something special. Now she activated it. Every communications network in the galaxy suddenly carried the same signal. It overrode commercial broadcasts, news feeds, even the council's official channels. It could not be blocked or stopped. Sungmin's face appeared on billions of screens across thousands of worlds. My name is Sungmin Lee. I speak for the chorus, an alliance of species who seek not revolution, but reformation. We do not seek to overthrow the council. We seek to remind it of what it was meant to be. Behind her, the ancient council charter appeared, its words glowing. These are the principles your ancestors agreed to: mutual aid, shared prosperity, equal dignity for all beings. We ask only that the council honor what it once promised. She paused, letting her words sink in. Some say humans are dangerous because we form emotional bonds, because we care about beings different from ourselves, because we believe every life has value. If this is dangerous, then we are guilty. But we ask you, is compassion truly a threat? Is cooperation truly destabilizing? Or are these the very things that could make the galaxy stronger? Her voice grew firmer. We do not seek to replace your leaders. We seek to remind them, and you, what leadership should be. Not control over others, but service to all. Not power concentrated in few hands, but strength drawn from many voices. Not fear of difference, but celebration of diversity. She finished with words that would be repeated across the galaxy for generations. We are the chorus. We are many species, many worlds, many dreams. But we sing one song, that every being matters, that kindness is not weakness, that together we are stronger than apart. Join us, raise your voice, help us remind the galaxy what it could be. The broadcast ended. Sungmin sat back, exhausted. Around her, human technicians monitored reactions across the galaxy. The responses flooded in, not just from the 47 species of the chorus, but from hundreds of others. Workers who had been afraid to speak up, citizens who had thought they had no power. Even some council members who had disagreed with Vexthor's policies but lacked the courage to oppose him. The galaxy was waking up, and it was asking questions that made the council very uncomfortable. In his office, Vexthor watched Sungmin's speech play again on his screen. For the first time in his long political career, he felt something close to genuine fear. Not fear of violence or war, fear of something more powerful, the possibility that he had been wrong. Da-Un Kim stared at her computer screen in disbelief. The data analyst had spent 20 years working with numbers and information systems. She had decoded alien languages and mapped trade routes. But she had never seen anything like this. The encrypted file had arrived from an anonymous source who called themselves only Whisper. The message with it was simple. The galaxy deserves truth. Now, looking at the contents, Da-Un understood why it had been encrypted. This was not just information. This was proof of everything the chorus had suspected and more. She called an emergency meeting of the Human Leadership Council. Ji-Hoon Park was there, older now after a year of fighting containment. Sungmin Lee attended by hologram from her location in neutral space. Haye Jin Kwan joined from one of the Haven stations. Dr. Minseo Choi came from the Human Medical Research Facility, where she had been developing treatments to share freely with other species. Da Yun shared the files without preamble. The room went silent as everyone read. The documents showed decades of systematic manipulation. The Council had deliberately kept certain species in poverty by restricting their access to technology they could easily learn to use. They had created artificial famines by controlling shipping routes. They had suppressed medical research that would have saved millions of lives because healthy populations were harder to control than desperate ones. Worse, there were records of assassinations. Leaders who had tried to reform the Council or advocate for their people had died in convenient accidents. The evidence pointed to Council involvement in at least 30 such deaths over the past century. "This is monstrous," Minseo whispered. "This is power without accountability," Sungmin corrected. "This is what happens when a few beings decide they know what is best for everyone else." Ji-hoon leaned back in his chair. His face showed the weight of what they had learned. "If we release this information, the galaxy could explode into chaos. How many civilizations will fall? How many beings will die in riots and rebellions?" "How many are dying now under Council policies?" Hee-jin countered. "How many children starve while Council members feast? How many sick go untreated while the wealthy receive every medical advancement?" The room erupted into debate. Some argued for releasing everything immediately. Others wanted to hold back the most inflammatory information. Some suggested using it as leverage to negotiate reforms. Others said negotiating with murderers was itself immoral. Minseo finally held up her hand for silence. When the room quieted, she spoke carefully. "I have spent my life studying different cultures and species. I have learned one truth that applies everywhere. You cannot build real peace on comfortable lies. Sooner or later, hidden truths come out. Better to face them on your terms than have them explode uncontrollably." "But we need to be smart about this," Sungmin added. "We cannot just dump information and walk away. We need to provide context, show patterns, offer solutions alongside the problems we expose." They decided on a strategy. Release the information gradually over several weeks. Give communities time to process each revelation. Provide historical context showing how the corruption developed. Most importantly, offer specific proposals for preventing such abuse in the future. Da-yun coordinated with chorus members across the galaxy. Each revelation was timed and explained carefully. Humans had learned from Earth's history that information alone was not enough. You had to help people understand what it meant and what they could do about it. The first wave of releases focused on economic manipulation, documents showing how the Council artificially inflated prices and restricted trade. These were serious but not immediately shocking. They confirmed what many had long suspected. Public reaction was strong but controlled. Protests erupted on dozens of Council worlds, but they remained mostly peaceful. Humans had taught the chorus well. The second wave revealed suppressed medical research, technologies that could have prevented plagues, cured genetic diseases, extended lifespans, all buried because the Council deemed them too expensive or worried they would disrupt population controls. This hit harder. Parents who had lost children to preventable diseases took to the streets. Medical professionals from hundreds of species demanded explanations. The Council's official response was defensive and weak. Councillor Vexathor tried to contain the damage. He gave speeches about difficult decisions and necessary trade-offs, but his words rang hollow against the evidence of children who had died unnecessarily. The third wave revealed the assassinations. The galaxy went silent with shock. Then it erupted. Riots broke out on major Council worlds. Angry crowds surrounded government buildings. Some turned violent, attacking Council facilities and anyone associated with the administration. And here, human teaching proved most important. Sungmin broadcast another message across all channels. "We understand your anger. Your rage is justified. But violence now only gives the council an excuse to crack down harder. They want you to become monsters, so they can justify treating you like monsters. She was joined by leaders from the chorus species. Together they called for peaceful resistance. Channel your anger into change, not destruction. Demand justice, not revenge. We are better than those who oppressed us. Let us prove it. More importantly, humans did something unexpected. When riots threatened council members and their families, humans stepped in to protect them. In the capital city of Zenith Prime, an angry mob surrounded the residence where Vexthor's family lived. The counselor himself was away, but his mate and 3 children were trapped inside. The mob wanted blood. A group of 30 humans formed a protective line between the mob and the building. They were unarmed. They simply stood there, linked arm in arm, and refused to move. "You will have to go through us," said their leader, a young woman named So Yeon. "And we will not fight you. We will just stand here and let you hurt us if that is what you choose." The mob faltered. Beating unarmed beings who would not even defend themselves felt wrong, even in righteous anger. "They deserve what is coming to them," someone shouted from the crowd. "Maybe," So-yeon replied calmly, "but his children do not. They are innocent of their father's crimes, and we judge actions, not bloodlines. If you want to hurt children to punish their parents, then you become exactly what the council was, beings who harm the innocent to maintain power." The crowd began to disperse, shame replacing anger. Similar scenes played out across council worlds. Humans protecting council members from violence, even though those same council members had voted to contain humanity, had tried to destroy them. It confused everyone. News networks struggled to explain it. Why save those who tried to destroy you? Ji-hoon was interviewed by a major galactic news service. The interviewer asked the question everyone wanted answered. "Why do humans protect your enemies?" Ji-hoon looked directly into the camera. "They are not our enemies. They are people who made wrong choices. Anyone can choose differently tomorrow. We do not judge beings by their worst moments. We judge them by whether they are willing to grow, to change, to be better." He continued, "If we wanted revenge, we could have it. The galaxy is angry enough right now, but revenge does not build a better future. It just continues cycles of harm. We want something more than revenge. We want reformation. We want a galaxy where no one has to fear starvation or preventable disease or assassination for speaking truth. That galaxy cannot be built on violence." In his secure office, Vexthor watched the interview. He had just learned that humans had saved his family from the mob. His children were safe because of the very beings he had tried to cage. The shame he had been pushing away for a year came flooding back. But this time, he did not push it away. He let himself feel it fully. His assistant, a young aide named Shrell, entered quietly. Vexthor looked at him with new eyes. "You are Whisper, are you not? You sent the files to the humans." Shrell met his gaze steadily. "Yes, Counselor. I could not serve a system built on lies any longer." Vexthor expected to feel anger. Instead, he felt relief. "Thank you. I think you may have saved us all. Certainly, you saved me from becoming a worse version of myself." He stood up slowly, his old bones creaking. "Call an emergency council session. Full assembly. I have something I need to say. Something I should have said a long time ago." Shrell looked surprised. "What will you tell them?" "The truth," Vexthor said simply. "Starting with the truth about myself." Outside the council headquarters, the galaxy held its breath and waited to see what would happen next. The old order was crumbling. The question now was what would replace it. The council chamber was completely full for the first time in decades. Every seat held a representative. Thousands of beings from across the galaxy had come to witness this historic session. The galleries were packed with observers, journalists, and common citizens who had never attended a council meeting before. Counselor Vexthor stood at the central podium. He looked older than he had a year ago. The weight of revelation had aged him, but his eyes were clearer than they had been in a long time. "I stand before you today not as your chairman," he began, his voice steady, "but as someone who has failed you. I have failed the principles upon which this council was founded. I have failed the beings who trusted me to lead with wisdom and compassion. Most importantly, I have failed myself." The chamber was completely silent. No one had expected this. When humanity petitioned for council membership, I was afraid. Not of their strength or technology. I was afraid of their values. They saw beings as individuals deserving of dignity and opportunity. We had built a system that saw beings as resources to be managed and controlled. Their presence threatened to expose what we had become. He looked around the vast chamber, meeting as many eyes as he could. So we contained them. We told ourselves it was for the good of the galaxy. We told ourselves they were destabilizing. But the truth is simpler and more shameful. We were afraid that if other species learned they could cooperate directly, question authority, and stand up for themselves, our power would diminish. Vexthor pressed a button. The holographic displays throughout the chamber came alive, showing all the evidence Da'un had compiled, every manipulation, every suppressed technology, every assassination, everything. This is what we did. This is who we became. I take responsibility for my part in this system. I enabled it. I benefited from it. I defended it, even when my conscience whispered that it was wrong. He paused, gathering his strength for what came next. Effective immediately, I resign as council chairman. I call for immediate elections under reformed rules that will allow all species equal voice, not just those with the most wealth or longest council membership. I propose that this body be restructured completely, guided by our original founding principles which we abandoned long ago. The chamber erupted. Some shouted agreement, some shouted protests, some simply sat in stunned silence. Elder Tharn of the Delphinus rose from his seat, his voice, amplified by translation, carried clearly. The council needs leadership during this transition. We need someone who understands both the mistakes of the past and the possibilities of the future. Someone who has proven their commitment to all beings, not just their own species. He turned to where Ji-Hoon Park sat in the human delegation section. "I nominate Captain Ji-Hoon Park of Humanity for interim council chairman." The chamber went wild. The idea of a human, a contained species, leading the council was unthinkable to many. But others cheered loudly. The chorus species erupted in approval. When order was finally restored, Ji-Hoon stood. He walked slowly to the central podium, his steps echoing in the enormous space. When he reached it, he turned to face the assembly. "I am honored by Elder Tharn's nomination," he said clearly, "and I respectfully decline." Shocked silence. Ji-Hoon continued. "We did not survive containment to become new overlords. We did not fight corruption to simply replace one power structure with another. That would betray everything we believe in." He gestured to Elder Tharn. "I nominate Elder Tharn for interim chairman. His people are among the oldest in the galaxy. He has shown wisdom and courage. More importantly, he has no personal stake in maintaining the old system. He will serve the galaxy, not any single species." The chamber buzzed with discussion. Elder Tharn looked surprised but thoughtful. "However," Ji-Hoon added, "I propose something else. Let us form a transitional council of 12 members, representing different species, different philosophies, different approaches. Let them work together to guide the Reformation. No single leader, no concentration of power, shared responsibility, shared leadership." Sungmin stood in the delegation area and spoke up. "I second this proposal, and I nominate the following for the Transitional Council. Elder Tharn of the Delphinus, Counselor Vexthor, who showed courage today, Engineer Hye-Jin Kwan of Humanity, Medic Shala of the Ventari, Admiral Dexcon of the Krell, who refused to fire on peaceful protesters, Hive Queen Zera of the Zara, Artist Crix of the Lithans, Scholar Moth of the Moths, and 4 others to be elected from species who have never held council power before. The debate lasted for hours, but eventually, exhaustion and hope combined. The proposal passed by a narrow margin. The Transitional Council was formed. Their first act was to lift humanity's containment immediately and formally apologize for it. Their second was to establish the Reformation Commission, tasked with completely restructuring galactic governance based on principles of mutual aid and shared prosperity. Their third act was to accept humanity's next proposal, which Ji-hoon presented with Min-seo's help. "We call it the Gardener Corps," Min-seo explained. "Human volunteers and volunteers from any other species who wish to join will travel to worlds that need help. Not to conquer or control, not to profit or gain political advantage, simply to help, to teach, to learn, to serve. We offer medical training, agricultural techniques, engineering knowledge, conflict resolution methods, and anything else we can share. We ask nothing in return except that those we help be willing to help others in turn when they are able. We plant seeds of cooperation and watch gardens grow." Hye-jin added, "The Haven stations will continue operating, but now openly. Safe places for any being who needs help or refuge. Meeting places for species to interact freely without needing council approval. We will build more, many more." The proposals were approved. What had begun as containment of humanity had transformed into liberation of the galaxy. 5 years passed. In a schoolyard on the planet New Harmony, children played together. Not just human children, though there were many of those. Krell children with bright scales chased Ventari cubs through the grass. Zara younglings clicked happily while building things with Lithan children who glowed in the sunlight. Moth larvae and Delphinus calves played in pools specially designed for both. Hye-jin Kwan watched from a bench, her own daughter playing among the others. The little girl, named Jisoo, was 4 years old. She had been born during the containment, when the future looked darkest. Now she played without knowing the galaxy had ever been divided. "Beautiful, is it not?" said a voice beside her. She turned to see Vexthor. The old Krell was no longer chairman. He had spent the past 5 years teaching at this very school, history and government, but from a perspective of humility. He taught students about the mistakes made so they would not repeat them. "Yes," Hye-jin agreed. "This is what we fought for." "I owe you an apology I have never properly given," Vexthor said quietly. "I tried to cage your entire species because I was afraid of what you represented, because you challenged my comfortable certainties." Hye-jin looked at him thoughtfully. "You gave us something precious, even if you did not mean to. You showed the galaxy what true strength looks like. Not the strength to dominate others, the strength to remain kind even when facing cruelty, the strength to help even those who tried to hurt you." "Humans taught the galaxy that," Vexthor said. "I just forced you to demonstrate it." They sat in silence for a moment, watching the children. Jisoo ran up, holding hands with a young Krell boy. "Mama, this is Zik. His daddy says he knows you." Behind the boy came a familiar figure. Ziktar, now older and more confident. He had become an engineer with the Gardener Corps, traveling to help rebuild worlds just as humans had once helped rebuild his. "Hey, Jin," Ziktar greeted warmly. "I am glad to see you. I just returned from the Delta sector. 15 new worlds have requested Gardener Corps' assistance. Former council enforcers are volunteering to help. Can you believe it?" Hye-jin smiled. "Yes, actually, I can. People can change. Systems can change. That is what we learned." Later that evening, Ji-hoon and Ziktar shared a meal at a small restaurant that served food from 20 different worlds. They talked about the challenges still facing the galaxy. Poverty still existed. Conflicts still arose. Problems did not disappear just because leadership changed. "But we are facing them together now," Ziktar said. "That makes all the difference." Ji-hoon nodded. "The council tried to isolate us. They thought separation would weaken us. Instead, it taught us something important. We are never alone unless we choose to be. Connection is always possible. Help is always available. Hope is always alive." "They tried to stop humanity," Ziktar said thoughtfully, "and you emerged stronger." "No," Ji-hoon corrected gently. "We emerged stronger. Not just humanity. All of us, together. That was the point all along. The council thought our strength came from being human. They were wrong. Our strength came from refusing to face challenges alone, from building bridges instead of walls, from seeing others not as competitors but as companions." He looked out the window at the busy street. Beings from dozens of species walked together, talked together, lived together, not perfectly, not without friction, but with genuine effort to understand and help each other. "They tried to teach us isolation," Ji-hoon continued. "We taught them connection instead, and in the end, connection is always stronger than isolation. Love is always stronger than fear. Hope is always stronger than despair." Across the galaxy, former council members worked alongside former rebels to build a better system. Gardner Corps volunteers brought help to worlds that had been forgotten for generations. Haven stations welcomed refugees and facilitated understanding between species who had never met before. The old galactic order had fallen. The new one being built was messy and uncertain and sometimes frustrating, but it was built on principles that gave beings hope, that they mattered, that they had voices, that they could shape their own futures. And at the center of it all was a simple truth that humanity had never forgotten, even during the darkest days of containment. Every being deserved dignity, every life had value, and together they could create something more beautiful than any single species could build alone. The Galactic Council had tried to stop humanity. Instead, humanity had shown the galaxy how to save itself. Not through conquest or superiority, but through the simple revolutionary act of treating others with kindness and believing that everyone deserved a chance to flourish. And the galaxy, slowly learning to see itself through human eyes, began to believe it too.